And we're live for another DNN Hangout. And I'm joined this month by my partner in crime, Will Stroll. Welcome back, Will. Good to see you. Summer winding
Who,
down here a little bit.
who, me? Me? Oh, hi, hi. Hey, Joe. Yeah, it's been a pretty warm month for everybody around here. So we're looking forward to the end of August. So that way we can get back to comfortable weather again. How are you doing?
So, Will, hey, I know that we haven't talked about where you work in a while, and I don't see anything.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to figure that out at some point.
Anyway, good to see you again, sir. Always, as
You too.
always.
You too. And I love how your face icon is you. Just in case anybody is confused about who Joe Brinkman is in your label, it's that face that happens to be speaking to us right now.
Yeah. So I was talking with you about that the other day. The Google changed something recently, and it disconnected my account from the DNN Corp account. So uh, now when I come in, I'm not able to come in as the DNN Corp account anymore. So it's defaulting back to my account. So it's obviously not optimal, but we'll get that fixed shortly, hopefully. Um,
Yeah. It's always somebody else's fault.
it
It's
is.
Google's fault. It's Microsoft Windows 10's fault. It's the driver's fault.
Well, at least I can just keep a list of those. So I just say, fault number one, fault number two. I don't have to, you know, actually spell those out. Helps. Helps.
Yeah, you
Anyway,
should publish those so that way we can all use them.
so, so, so here we've got a really interesting topic this month, Will.
Oh, we definitely do. But before we get to that, let's talk about what's upcoming. So we have a just recently scheduled, and you'll find it on the Hangout page. Oh, and by the way, before we get started with that, if anybody has any questions, just let us know. You can see Joe Brinkman's Twitter handle and mine, at Will Stroll, at Jay Brinkman. Whether you have questions for us or for the speaker that we're about to introduce, feel free to ping us on Twitter, and we'll get that asked immediately. But we got some upcoming hangouts. So next week we have a special episode. So we may or may not have a guest in there. What I'm trying to do is bring in a new face, a new developer from the community that hasn't been on a hangout or may not have been in an event. Just somebody new who's a developer that hasn't yet contributed to the DNN source, because the next week's topic is going to be about covering the DNN source code. We're going to walk through it and say, hey, what's this project and why is that put together, and do I build this thing? Oh no, it explodes. So we're going to go over all that stuff next week. And if we can find, if you're interested and you're a brand new developer to the DNN ecosystem, feel free to ping us, and we'll include you in next week's episode. We're going to choose one. So
So
that's.
maybe Will, we can get Ryan Morgan to fill that spot.
I have no comment on that. So that's next week. So mark your calendars. That's a special episode. Same time, same day. And then in September 9th, we still have slotted Philip Becker. He's currently on, I think they call this a holiday in the entire region of Europe. In fact, we were very lucky to get our speaker right now. He must have ended his holiday early. But he's going to be talking about building social sites with DNN platform. And then October, we got Clint Patterson. You probably heard of the Southerner, as we sometimes call him. He's going to be telling us how he gets funky with the form and list module. At least that's his title, not mine. And then in November, we got a special DNN 8 event. So we're going to talk about all things DNN 8. And so more news on that as far as when the date is in November. But if you're interested in being a speaker or presenter, you have something cool to show us about DNN, feel free to hit us up on our Twitter handle or email us or put a comment in the comments areas. We're right now trying to fill December and beyond. So let us know. So those are our coming hangouts, but now we get to introduce our very special guest. Joe and I promised not to butcher his name, and we found out that it's not easy for anybody to pronounce his name, apparently, even people that speak his native language. And so we're going to introduce Jess and let him say his own name. But Jess joins us from ARICIE. He's a CTO of ARICIE, and he's been doing a lot of things DNN for a long time now, but not everybody knows who he is, but you probably have seen the term ARICIE somewhere. So welcome to the show, Jess.
Hello, thanks for having me in the show.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for being here. So I'm going to first ask you the same question that I asked Addison not long ago, a few months back. Why don't you help us and give us a tutorial on saying your name real quick for everybody?
On what, sorry?
A little tutorial on how to say your name correctly.
Ah, a tutorial for that. Yeah, that might be long. Well, my name is just Jean Sylvain, but even those kinds of names get nicknames in France, so I'm Jess for everybody. Jean something is always Jeff or Jeb or Jep or Jess. That's the way I ended up being called.
Well, we already know one Jess, so we promise not to get you too mixed up. So we're going to ask a few questions. I noticed that, well, first of all, you studied at University of Sussex in UK, but you're based out of France, right?
Yeah, I live in Paris at the moment. ARICIE'S is a company which is originally based in the southeast of France, but we're a couple of us in Paris at the moment, and obviously a lot of work is in Paris, in France.
Nice. So is that's your home country, or were you from somewhere else?
Yeah, that's my home country. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So Paris. How's Paris for somebody that hasn't been there yet? I mean, I've been to the airport, but I haven't been outside of the airport.
Well, it can be a very nice place, but you have to count for the Parisians, which kind of tend to waste everything.
Nice.
But
So
I like living here anyway.
Nice. So do you see the heat waves like some of us in the U.S. Complain about all the time, or you can get these sometimes it feels like 100 degrees?
Yeah, we got that. Actually, I was in vacation in Hungary, but we had about the same weather there. So yeah, this summer was pretty hot.
Yeah.
I have to say, I was out there at Millau in May and beginning of June, and seemed fairly nice to me. I don't understand what the problem is. Isn't all of France the same?
Well, having that kind of weather can be a little heavier when you're in Paris and you don't have that much places to get fresh to.
So tell us a little bit about your company, ARICIE. You know, where to come from, how to come about, what do you do?
So ARICIE was originally my father's company. Was a kind of a generalist IT company, and when I joined this team, we decided to specialize. That was in 2003, I think, and we chose a bunch of components to build applications, and DNN was one of them, and we kept up until now. So we've been .NET nuking for a little more than 10 years now.
Love the term. I didn't realize this was a family business. That's pretty cool. So how long has ARICIE been around?
I think dates from 1996. But it's always been pretty small, a pretty small family business. So.
Mm-hmm. So small. Well, actually, 1996. So just to make Joe feel his age, that's when I graduated high school. I don't know how that makes him feel.
Yeah, I had already graduated high school, graduated college, been through the military, and was on my second career by then.
I wasn't yet in high school.
Oh, he wasn't yet in high school. Oh no, now he's dating me. Oh boy. All right, so let's move on. So you standardize on DNN. Well, why did ARICIE, like you or your father, like who chose to standardize on DNN and why?
Well, the choice of the Microsoft stack wasn't mine. We had like our biggest customer at the time who needed that, and I didn't think at the moment that it would last that long. I thought it was just a stack amongst other, but then it became quite a full time to work on the Microsoft stack. And then I was looking for, well, the best components for each parts that we needed for the software that we needed to build. And DNN, I think, was the best open source CMS at the moment. So, well, might still be true. I think the question is more difficult now, but at the moment, the choice was actually pretty easy. And I was at the point when localization became a thing, so the timing was about right for us.
Yeah, and so was there any specific thing besides like it was easy to adopt at the time? Were there any like specific features that really kind of called out at you that you're like, okay, this is really great for our customer or our customers, and this is why we're going to be using it?
Well, the fact that DNN came with so many standard features packed and easy to modify and easy to understand, and with all the source code and samples and the tens of modules, all of this was really nice. I mean, I had a look at SharePoint, but it was much more closed at that point, and there wasn't so much on that, and it wasn't an option really. And on the open source side, DNN was really miles ahead of anybody else.
So Joe, I forgot to put this in the show notes. We need to make sure that we tell the speakers not to mention SharePoint. I forgot to say that. No, I'm kidding. When you look at your site, it looks like you have a lot of products that are in there. Who is your like standard customer that you kind of target? I mean, you got Crystal Reports in here. You got something called DNN Espresso, some analytics. I mean, you got a ton of things in here.
I'm not sure those that you mentioned even would characterize our typical customers. And I must say we had a really huge variety of projects over those 10 years, and that was part probably of the difficulty of industrializing those things. So yeah, we published a lot of modules either for free or commercially. But to be honest, it never accounted for more than a couple % of our turnover. So the most of our business was dedicated applications or partial DNN consulting. But the things that we published so far was mainly for marketing, I would say, because that got us a couple of customers. But we didn't manage really to live out of our products. At the moment, we've got, I think, 3 big products. I'm going to introduce one of them, and 2 others that we managed to sell to a couple of customers. So hopefully, one of those things will get us ahead, I guess.
Absolutely. So when you think about your, did you have something, Joe?
No. I just, I had seen one of his products at the DNN Connect, which is the one we're going to talk about today, and I can definitely see why customers would be interested. Definitely some interesting products.
Yeah, I took a quick look at it when Joe brought it up, and I was like, okay, yeah, we got to talk to this guy. So when we talk about your business, you have all these products. You build applications for your customers, and I noticed, like in your education, you had a little bit of work in some artificial intelligence. Does that come into play at all, and how you build products for your customers?
Well, hopefully soon. I had the chance to do a couple kind of smart algorithms in the past, but not that many. And I'll be teaching an artificial intelligence course on the next year for an engineering school, and hopefully I can leverage all the stuff that I'll prepare for that and integrate those blocks right into the application that we're going to introduce today. So that's the plan, and I'll be really happy when I can have a couple building blocks with machine learning and, well, all the AI stuff that I know about.
Well, you can't see it right now, but I'm geeking out on the inside. I can't wait for that. So kind of continuing with your company, you build all these, pardon me, these web-based applications. Have you seen a trend, over the past few years of things going a specific way, and how does that affect you?
Well, the thing is, the DNN market is still, and maybe more than before, a niche market, and the trend that we have seen is not particularly good for us because basically only, well, as far as we saw, mainly big companies have started the DNN project, and usually we would be on the second or even third line behind other integrators with, well, general ASP.NET knowledge, and that wasn't necessarily the best position for us. So that's the reason why we tried to move ahead with products and direct services rather than general consulting, being the DNN expert, which isn't so, which is quite difficult in France, I think. Maybe it's a bit different in other European markets or in international markets, but the DNN market in France is pretty small, and there are difficult projects to deal with. So that was the plan.
Sure. So you're. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
So do you market, or do you target the broader European market, or are you guys mainly focused in France at this point?
That was my question.
At this point, I would say that we work mainly in France. Maybe it's not the best thing, but that's where our expertise is known, and where people would get to us for, well, complete or specific tasks on several projects. So that's the thing that we tend to do. I think we're pretty good for that, and a lot of people know that if there's something wrong with a DNN project, they can call RIC. Problem is, a lot of people call us when there's something wrong and not necessarily a lot of money to be invested. So that's the kind of positions that we are in at the moment.
Yeah. So personally, what I've seen in some people is with that trend, they like, you're already doing it, but like having like a solution and say, okay, well, we have the solution, and so like, yes, you can call us when everything's on fire, but we have a solution that we offer you as well, and that's kind of what I see on your site, is all these different solutions, which is pretty neat. Joe, do you have any more questions for Jess?
No, I'm really interested in taking a look at the module, and I know we've got some other stuff to talk about for a minute, other things going on in the community, but yeah.
So let's transition to news. All right, so let's start with DNN platform updates. I know we got a 7.4.2 beta out there. We got a CTP of DNN 8. How's that going?
Both of them are going really well. We actually, I just finished looking at some new features we've got for DNN 8 this morning. So we've got another CTP that's going to be, the August CTP is going to be out here next week. We're just wrapping up a few items with that. So we've got a couple more months to go on the DNN 8 timeline. We should have a DNN 7.4.2 out next month, but you can go look at the beta now. The big thing on both of those, and this is something that is brand new for both the 7.4.2 beta as well as the current CTP 3 of DNN 8, is we're now supporting incremental upgrades. So if you're running the beta or you're running the CTP, you'll be able to upgrade to the next CTP or the next beta, depending on which version you're on, without any problems, and then ultimately upgrade to the final platform release for either 7.4.2 or 8.0. So we did a bunch of work earlier this summer and this spring so that we could actually support upgrading in between versions, so that you're no longer tied to, well, I installed a beta, but now I've got to blow it away, to install the final. So that's a pretty big ask from the community, and we were finally able to deliver that. I know a lot of people were waiting for that. So platform-wise, I'm really happy where we're at. We've got some really big things coming in DNN 8, and I'm really looking forward to getting that out. And then next week I'm going to be talking about sort of where we go beyond the DNN 8 release, and sort of talking some longer term stuff, and really sort of putting that out there. So definitely a lot of good stuff coming in platform.
Awesome. Are there any website updates that we should know about? Anything interesting, or it's been a mild month for website updates?
It's been quite a little bit of a slow month. Like everyone else, we're busy cycling through our marketing and engineers, getting people out on vacation for summer. Giving them their 1 or 2 days of vacation off, so that they can, unlike our European friends.
Yeah, I definitely noticed how much our European friends impact the ecosystem, because news is a little light this month.
Yeah, it actually looks like Jess just went on vacation as well.
Oh yeah. Hopefully it'll connect right back in. Yeah. Good thing we have a little bit more left before it's time for him to present. Nice. So I got a question from Mark, and I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm probably going to get it wrong, Mark, and I'm sorry. But Mark Buelsing, he wants to know about plans about the DNN Connect. And I am not the right person to ask about that. And he may or may not be referring to DNN Con. But DNN Con, there's no new update on that. The folks that are trying to kind of evaluate options, they're still doing that. They're looking for venue options, and so hopefully we'll have more news on that in the coming weeks, which kind of transitions us into the next topic here, which is the working groups. And so the trading working group had a surge over the last few weeks, and so we got a couple new members, we got some activity, and so we got some materials that we're building up that are right now we're keeping top secret, because when we put it out there, we want everybody to kind of go, oh wow, cool. But there's some really cool stuff that we have planned right now, and so if you want to be part of the trading working group, just let me know. Let's see here.
While we're on that topic, there are a couple of things. So I know we've got some stuff that Ernst Peter and Access have been working on for the community, and hopefully by next month's CTP in September for DNN 8, he'll have some new stuff to share with the community. I know Oliver Hines been working on some stuff for community to go on the platform here soon. A lot of big things. And in the past, for most of this past year, most of the community stuff that people have been working on are little small bite-sized things, and now people are really starting to sink their teeth into some really big projects, and it's taken a while for us to get here, but I think everyone's going to be happy with what comes out in DNN 8 and this whole lead up to DNN 8. So happy to hear we've got more people in the training group.
Yep. And so that's going well, and so I'm also participating in DNN 8. I'm helping a little bit there. So and I think we can use more help if people are have some spare cycles, right?
Yeah. No, it's even awesome to see people like Scott Wilhite back around, kicking the tires, opening up code editors. I was talking with him yesterday, and we were stepping through some DNN site editing. So he's definitely getting back in the groove, and that's always good to see.
Yeah. So tell me about this curly bracket thing.
Oh, Scott's not that bad.
I know. All right, so we got some interesting blogs, and two of them are about what we've already kind of discussed, but in a lot more detail. So the 7.4.2 beta and the DNN 8 CTP. So those are written by Sir Brinkman right here. So check. You'll have those in the show notes, so make sure you check them out. There's also a vendor interview with somebody named Will Stroll. I think is Stroll.
I don't think that's how you pronounce his last name, but we'll go with it anyway.
Yeah, so Addison Oliveira, so he interviewed me a few weeks ago, and there's a blog topic on that. We also have a blog that somehow Peter Donker, in between his drinking of whatever he drinks on his vacation, he managed to put a blog out there about to MVC or not to MVC. So that was an interesting post. It's a pretty thought-provoking. And there's been, so that's really all the blogs. That's really it. Like people have been off this month. And so,
Yeah.
but the same people that are blogging are not the same people building modules, because there was a ton of extensions released over this past month. So instead of naming them all, I'm just going to name a couple and then put the rest in the show notes. But Easy DNN, they put out Easy DNN Maps. Pro DNN, Mighty LMS, they had a release. Anya Tech had a couple of releases. OpenForm and Open Content. Those are open source modules for creating kind of dynamic responsive content in forums. And I've recently become a fan of those. Those are really, really good by, I got the name here somewhere, I lost it. Sasha, I'm not going to say his last name.
I think Sasha's released like 15 versions of open content just in the last month. That guy is a machine on that module, and he's got a couple others that he's done too. So
and they're good. They're good. They're really good. I'm very pleased with them. So I'm a fan. And like I said, we had a number of others out there. There was another release for the DNN development template by Chris Hammond, and a bunch of JavaScript library updates by Brian Dukes as well. Oh, look, we're getting Jess back. Awesome.
Oh, he's back off a holiday.
Yeah.
Ironically, you're back just in time. Literally. We just now are finishing the news, so that's perfect timing. And you know, it makes me wonder if you planned that all together.
Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. My computer decided to crash at the worst moment, so I won't be able to comment the news. But well, apparently they were good news.
Did you have any news you wanted to bring up? Any interesting things in the DNN community or ecosystem that you could think of?
No, not really. I think all the things I'm going to talk about now.
Well, it's kind of hard for you. I mean, you just got back from vacation. You probably have an inbox full of news. You just haven't gotten to it yet. So at this point, we're going to transition to you, Jess. So Jess is going to be showing us the Portal Keeper module. So at this point, the show is yours, Jess.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I switched to screen sharing, and I'll have a PowerPoint presentation, and basically a web browser will be most of where I spend my time. So here's for the screen sharing. Hopefully the crash didn't waste all the caches that were there, but we'll see. Is that okay? Can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about one of our products, which is called Portal Keeper, which is an online agent platform. So what is it? I've got a website here. This is my local DNN development site. And here's the main form where we're gonna spend most of the time in this demonstration. It is a big hierarchical form that lets you edit what is actually a big XML file, which you can restore backups of, and you can switch to another location. I've got the file there. I think it's reached the point where it's too big, because it's 146,000 lines file, so it starts to be a big file. But so far it works pretty well, and actually if you have an editor where you can fold the XML tags, it's actually very convenient to browse it that way. But the form is there to browse it online, but it's basically an adaptation of a child's property editor, which has that hierarchical aspect. So you got 5 engines flavors. We have schedule bots, we have REST web services, we have a firewall, which is a single agent, whereas each bot is a different agent, and each service controller action is a different agent. So that's the firewall agent. You've got HTTP handlers, and you've got control adapters. So we get through all these different types of agents to see what you can do with them. And modules.
So Jess,
yep.
So Jess, let's back this up a little bit. So let's pretend I'm an administrator and this is my first time seeing this. What does Portal Keeper do for me besides having all these features? Like what's the main point? Like, why would I install it?
It's got many different application parts which will be useful for you. If you're a portal administrator, the firewall will give you nice rules. I'm going to go through a couple of them, but they are probably already from within those 11 default rules, firewall rules that you might want to use on your DNN portal, and you can customize them, which makes it interesting. The web services are useful. Well, it's a way to build REST services online. All the hard-coded things that you usually do when developing web API services, you can do them online, and you can use things like attributes, dynamic attributes. So if you want to monitor which module or which DNN roles can access what service, then you can do that online, and you can change it online without recompiling your code. Control adapters are very useful for all DNN instances or very customized DNN instances. I think we all had those DNN projects where the previous programmer has customized a lot of the DNN core, and it's pretty hard to upgrade those kinds of platforms. With control adapters, you can move all those customizations to dynamic adapters and then upgrade your DNN site more easily. And HTTP handlers, they're like regular .NET handlers, except that they're dynamic as well, and they got a lot of features that you can use. And bots, I'm going to talk about it. There's a lot of things you can say about bots, but you can think of like the DNN scheduler, but on steroids. But one interesting thing about all this is that you've got an online IDE to build those agents, and you've got building blocks, which are rules, and then actions, conditions, and expressions. And at the moment, there's 32 action providers and 9 condition providers, so that's already quite a lot to get started. Does that answer?
Yeah. So this basically gives you a UI to be able to do things that you would otherwise need to build modules and all these things for. So basically, you did that hard work and gave people a tool that they can use to do all this without having to build it themselves, right?
Exactly. That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
So as I understand it, this is open source as well, right? You can find this in Codeplex, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So there's the project is hosted on Codeplex at the moment. I'm planning to move it to GitHub at some point. I guess later this year. But you have everything on Codeplex. The source code is available. So yeah, you're more than welcome to come here and join the project.
Cool. All right. Well, sorry for that detour. I just want to kind of bring it back for people to be able to let them know what we're looking at before we look at it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So that's for the general presentation. So let's move into the details. Let's start with the firewall. I think that's the agent that's probably the easiest to see an interest in at the moment in any DNN application. There are a lot of cases that are covered by an additional application firewall. So it's a single agent, as I said, and there are 11 rules by default, and you can think of it as a flexible
Are you
agent.
intending to show the screen right now? Because we're looking at you. I'm not sure if you meant to.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Back to screen sharing.
Yeah, and actually the firewall is the thing that I was first interested in because we've got a basic request filtering and DNN, but it's very, very basic, and it's a little bit complicated to configure. And when I first saw Jess had showed me the firewall stuff this spring, and it's just like it's amazing how much capability is there.
Yep. So for those who remember, it might be a little bit like Synapse's Page Blaster, which was a pretty useful module. I'm not sure if it works on the last DNN versions, but I haven't heard so much about it recently. And the firewall has very similar capabilities. So basically, here are the rules of the firewall, and I will get through a couple of them. So I've divided the default rules in different categories. You have security rules. So let's look at some of them. Critical accounts protection, for instance. So that's a rule that will let you protect some levels of authorization. So that's one of the conditions, which is called match critical accounts. And you can define the roles, or at the moment it's hosts and administrators that you want to protect this way. And then it will match untrusted locations, so the one locations where you should not be able to log in with one of those authorizations. So this is a compound condition which is negated. So what we're looking at now is the union of trusted locations. So you got trusted IP ranges, trusted portal aliases, trusted countries, which is disabled at the moment, and there's one which is based on a profile property where you would define IP addresses for each user and use that one. Just to illustrate it, well, I need to enable the rule, and it's just based on an alias condition at the moment. So if I enable the rule, save, and then use a different alias. If I want to log in here, I use user switcher, but it would be the same if I use the conventional login. It won't let me log in. And on top of that, in the actions, there will be an alert log in the DNN event log, and you can see the user is signed off and redirected to a dedicated page. So we can check in the event log that there's this alert. Yeah, there's the alert and with a message. You can see from the message that there are dynamic tokens here, and the tokens that we use here and all the way through the module is an advanced version of the native DNN token system. You can have compound tokens, you can call methods, you can have loop tokens, you can have conditional tokens. It's a very enhanced version of DNN tokens. So that was for that rule. Hopefully, while I go through the different rules and different agents, you get a touch of the different building blocks that you get access to. That's also the use of that demonstration. So I'm just going to disable it now. So then anti-DDoS protection, so anti-distributed denial of service attack. I won't demonstrate that rule now because what would probably be a bad idea to hammer the web server where I'm doing the presentation. But what I'm going to show you is the result of such a simulated attack. So this is a report which I generated during an attack. So this is with the DDoS rule disabled, and this is from the rogue client side. So you can see there's a increasing amount of rogue client hammering the server, and the click time increases. This is a view from the legitimate clients, and they got the same effect basically. Now with the rule activated, you can see there's a threshold. And after that threshold, the rogue clients are just shut down, and we can go up to 200 something hits per second, but all requests are denied. Whereas for legitimate clients, it's back to normal after the threshold has been reached. So this is the effect of that rule. I would say it's not a replacement for proper denial of service, network level denial of service protection, especially if we're looking at very big attacks. But I think it's quite a good complement, and it protects the web server probably at a more subtle point than the network protection would work. So that was for the anti-DDoS. Simultaneous connection, I would just get through, but it detects when the same account logs in from different sessions or different IPs according to your configuration, and will generate an email to the owner of that account saying, okay, maybe it's you, but if it's not you, then contact your administrator. And then you've got performance rules. Maybe I can illustrate the CDN processor. So the CDN processor will go through the response HTML and update all the links to resources for the site, and choose a dedicated alias for that. Sorry. So there's a parameter in the firewall that controls the CDN strategy, and basically you choose one alias, which is the CDN alias, which you would probably subscribe to a service to optimize, and you also have a caching strategy, dedicated CDN caching strategy associated to it. So if I enable that, and also in the rule, sorry, there's a condition that the request should be unauthenticated. So that's just for convenience, but could work for any kind of request. So if I use private navigation window, and if I inspect, yeah, you can see that all the resources have been updated with the CDN alias. So that's quite convenient. That's a little additional cost to each request, about 50 milliseconds, but that's nearly a fixed cost, and it can have better consequences for performances. And
so does that just simply, how does that particular one work? Does it make a copy of these files, or is it just simply using a different alias in general just to use those? And how does that work?
What the rule does is just update the HTML content, and actually there's a counterpart which is dedicated with CDN request, where it sets the caching strategy and custom opt-out response header, because you have to account for session affinity and that kind of thing. So you want clear request without session cookies to the CDN, and we deal with that thing. and on the regular non-CDN side, you have normal. You replace all the content. Let me show you that actually. It's a bit.
Je vais lancer une recherche sur Internet
Oops,
pour répondre.
sorry.
I didn't understand a word that was just said.
So this is the part. This is a conditional action. Sorry. And if this request has the CDN alias, then you have the processing, which I just talked about. And if it doesn't have it, then it will process the DNN page to change the content. And the way it does it is it hooks a dynamic filter to the response, and within the hook, you've got a couple actions. So this is dynamic event handler. It was pretty hard to implement, but the details are interesting for those who
Yeah,
might
in the
want
back
to.
of my head, I'm sitting there going, "Wow, how do you do that?"
Yeah, it's a mix of dynamic expressions. I could talk about it, but it's a bit complicated. And here you've got the response as a string, basically, and then
So basically, does it just change the path, or does it, and so the files still live in the same place, or does it do something more dynamic than that?
No, it doesn't change the place, but if you got a dedicated DNN alias to your CDN, then you can plug the URL, the domain name of that dedicated alias to a proper CDN service that will do the querying and the caching and the international caching for you. So it's not it's doing part of it. If you're doing without changing anything, then you will have clear requests without session cookies, that kind of things. But I guess if you want a real CDN, then you want to plug a real CDN service to that specific portal alias, while the other alias is dedicated to dynamic content and is not going through the CDN. Does that make it clearer?
Yes, absolutely.
And as for the transformation that it does, it just computes a new URL for each attributes which it got through XPath query at the moment. I haven't optimized the XPath query, but I guess you could change that to include other kinds of resources, but that's the way it works. Moving on. Another similar, actually, rule is a response filter rule, which is similar to something that existed in Synapses. And if I look at it, it's also based on dynamic hook, and then you got different transformations. So you can have global string transformations, like just string replaces or regex replaces. So let's enable that one.
So back in the day when I used to use Synapses Page Blaster, that's something I used it for a lot. To get rid of some things in modules that you couldn't get rid of because they were emitting like just kind of bad HTML or something like that. It was a very useful tool.
So if you want to work at the HTML level, like string level, that would be the ideal tool. But there are other tools, like control adapters are actually more subtle. If you just want to change the way a control works or to fix a control that has stopped working, I would advise using a control adapter rather than filtering the string output. And the other transformation, for instance, this is a XPath transformation, looks for cloak tags, and then it will filter that and replace it with numbered entities. And the last transformation is it does local module transformation, where what it does is it applies token replace, the same system that we talked about. So if we want to test all of the three combined, So yeah, that would be it. Yeah, maybe I should disable the rule to see what the original content was. Okay, so we've got string replaces. Actually, for some reason, it's still replaced, but well, the token are not replaced anymore. And as for the cloaking, should look at the source. And it's not cloaked, it's actually, not sure. Well, actually, I disabled the, well, there must be some little things wrong, but it worked half an hour ago. So this is the kind of transformation. Of course, you could imagine other string transformation that you want at this point, but this is samples to get started, basically. I think we're good for the firewall. You can check the other kind of rules. Maybe one thing that I didn't mention and that you've got in the redirect mobile devices is the expressions that you got access to at many points in the module, and this is the expressions I'm talking about. So it's based on a open source project which is called Flea, and now it's been stopped, but there's a Flea Sharp upgrade, and this is basically more or less code that is compiled. You can see it's very similar to code expression, and it's very handy to have those expressions all around. So if you have the actual building block to fill in your condition, then it's fine. But if you don't have it, you can very often make an expression that will glue the blocks together. Okay, that's it.
Well, actually, if we can go back there, I saw something very interesting, just real quick.
Yep.
You have an expression builder. So you built a UI to build that expression as well?
It's at the moment it's pretty simple, but it's more if you want to find the variables that you forgot about.
Okay.
Ideally, you would want IntelliSense as you have in Visual Studio, and I guess it is quite possible with the kind of information that you've got through the expression builder, but it's not completely a full development environment, I would say, where you would expect to have perfect IntelliSense. You don't have that, but it's still not too hard to figure out your expressions. And you've got variables like the regexes. I just got that on the internet, and I guess they probably should be updated to the kind of regexes for mobile devices. So you can have variables. You've got many ways to evaluate that. If you override the expression owner, you got many other things you can change. I won't get into that. There's a lot of features related to expressions. So maybe we see a couple of them.
Yeah, I think we're getting the idea of exactly how it is you get to 126,000 or 146,000 lines of XML. There's a lot of deep nesting of rules and stuff here.
Yeah, well, to be honest, there's probably more redundancy in that big file that you've got on a web.config file, but still, if you compress both, you got the good ratio, and I think it's like DNN web.config file is 8 kilo compressed, and that big config file is like 1 megabyte compressed. So it's still, there's a lot of information, even if you're removing all the redundant information from the XML file. So bots, what are bots? Bots are scheduled agents. So you've got a schedule here. You can schedule a simple period. It can go a little you can go to shorter periods than what the DNN scheduler proposes, because it runs several times per DNN schedule. But you can have complex timings with specific days or specific hours, whatever, and combine that with periods. So the schedule can be quite complicated, basically. And you got a lot of features like the synchronous or asynchronous side of things. You're gonna be able. Sorry, where's that? Yeah, here. If you make your bot running asynchronously, then you can have a queue of them, and the queue can have several threads dedicated to queuing, to dequeuing the waiting bot instances, and then you can define things like the priority, and you can even enable performance counters, Windows performance counters. So, and that's actually also available for every single action that supports it. So if you manage to configure right all your bots and other kinds of agents so that most of the stuff is done asynchronously, you can have different queues with several threads dedicated to each queue. And the way it works is it makes use of a project which is called a Smart Thread Pool. So basically, if you put 5 threads, it won't create the threads and then just leave them. It will actually increase the number of threads according to the queue size. So it's quite a smart component, and you've got that available nearly everywhere in the software. So this is the kind of features that you've got available. It's not just in bots, but it's particularly interesting in bots where you want to optimize the usage of resources on the server. And then you've got user bots. User bots are bots for your community users. Basically, what you will do with a user bot is dedicate a couple of parameters to your users, not necessarily all of them. This is, for example, the search scrapper bot. I've got 3 parameters which the user can use. And I guess if I go to the original scrapper bot, I might have more parameters. No, actually, I got 3 there. But for the Bitcoin trading bots, I have parameters which I don't want the users to change, like what the exchange API is, and well, actually that's the only one. But I will let the users specify their own credentials, their own strategy. They will have access to their own history and their own simulations, but the exchange is a parameter which is only available on the master bot. So you got this concept of master bots available here, and user bots where the user get access to only a couple of parameters to control his instance of the bot. Yeah, and enhanced security.
So Jess, one quick item about the scheduling and the bots and how all of these run. So in DNN, as you know, our scheduler, we run, you can say run every hour, or run, at a particular point. So when you're saying run at a particular time, do you have any mechanism that you use to enforce running at a specific time, or is it like the DNN that it makes a best effort to run on a certain schedule?
Well, the way it works is there's an inner schedule, which is 20 seconds AM, but you can make it shorter, and it will go through all the farm every 20 seconds, and then for each bot and for each user bot, so for each user instance of a master bot, there will have a planned schedule stored somewhere in memory. I won't get into the details, but well, it knows exactly when it should play it, and that's the minimum precision that you're gonna have. Well, you can go lower than 20 seconds, but that's just the default setting.
Okay.
So what's like as somebody who's looking at this for the first time, what's a good example you've seen or heard of like a client saying, "Hey, I need this," and then you're like, "Whoa, you know what? Let's use the user bot for that."
Well, the last one I worked on was the search result scrapper, and if I go to the user bot settings, there's something. Oh no, that's not the one. Sorry. Search result scrapper product. So that was a client who had thousands of products in many places, many websites, and wanted to monitor the user community activity, like the ratings and the comments on all the products. So this is the list of requests that we've designed for those websites, and on each of them you've got master request. You choose either to use a web client or web browser if you want the JavaScript to execute. The way the pager works in the result pages, and then what do you want to scrap, like ID, name, brand, rating, reviews number, URL, and then you can go, well, there's no detail here, but there's others where you got detailed queries. No, well, not this one either. Let's see, maybe Apple. Yeah, so you can go to the product details and then some more scrapping on the product details. And then custom properties. You even have, where is that? You even have a Python script at some point because they were using Python. So this is Iron Python, which they wanted.
Is crazy. Like the amount of effort that I know you had to put into this in order to be able to support something like that, and all the way down to those detail levels, is just impressive.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. Yeah, if you have some time to spend and you get through the configuration and the features, I'm sure you find plenty of features that you might even want to use in your own code. And well, it's open source, so you can just use it. So yeah, there's a lot of work.
The one thing, and I know we're jumping a little bit ahead in the interest of time here. The one thing that I also found interesting was when you wanted to have I forget the name of it, the CAPTCHA, all right, the reCAPTCHA control in DNN, and DNN has our own CAPTCHA control, right? You used this tool and used one of the control adapters to actually inject the reCAPTCHA control into your website, right?
Yeah, this is the reCAPTCHA control adapter. So it's got two parameters for the two Google keys that you need to use it, and then one handler that replaces the rendering of the native DNN CAPTCHA, and one that deals with the validation of the Google CAPTCHA. So if we want to try that, if I go login and reset passwords, actually maybe it's disabled. No, it's not. Not sure.
Well, we kind of need to wrap up right now, but this is impressive. So I do have kind of like a closing question before we kind of close this off. Sure. The amount of effort you put into this, and you clearly use this for your clients, and you have a lot of different things that you can apply it to. Like, what went into the decision to make that open source versus making that a commercial offering?
Well, the thing is, and that was probably my last slide, there's a project behind that, and it's going to be a website where we're going to try to commercialize a couple of those agents, and it's going to be called Maya for My Intelligence Agency. So it's going to be basically the module online where you can register several agents. And some of the earlier bots that we programmed were the Bitcoin trading bots. That was an experiment in 2012 where we had nearly 300 user bots. There were users that trusted us with their exchanges access, and we went through HMAC authentication, and we had market making strategies. So that was Bitcoin trading bots, and we want to come back with another version of those. But unfortunately, the last working exchange that we supported was Mt. Gox. So if you heard about it, we need to change that. But it's a work in progress. We're going to support multi-cryptocurrency exchanges with more flexible strategies, and hopefully we can have people pay credits to use those. So that's the business model of the next version. You're going to have social network bots. You're going to have a bunch of REST services, and people will be able to customize all of that online. I wish I had some time to demonstrate the web services which Joe hasn't seen yet, but basically this is all web API dynamically. You got dynamic controllers, dynamic routes, dynamic actions, dynamic attributes, dynamic parameters, and even the parameters have dynamic attributes from the one you might know about. So web API completely dynamic online. And I want to have user services the same way we have user, but you're going to have user REST services.
Yeah, the interesting thing there to maybe keep in mind or look at, one of the technologies that we're investigating, we're going to have some REST APIs in DNN 8, is the use of Swagger, which is a documentation protocol for REST APIs. And then based on Swagger, you can actually generate client SDKs and all kinds of other things. But the interesting thing is that some guys from Microsoft wrote up another project called Swashbuckle, which takes web API APIs and generates the Swagger docs that you can then use to generate your client SDKs. So you might actually be able to use Swashbuckle and integrate it with your dynamic web API to automatically generate your Swagger docs and then go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. There's something a bit similar which I did with HTTP handlers, is associated to your handlers, which are like services, but just regular HTTP handlers. You got feeders where you got this is default feeder where you got a page, a JavaScript, and a CSS, and you can have that with all of your HTTP handlers. And I was planning to have the same kind of feature with REST services, but if I can have something better on the client side, that would be better. And this is, for instance, the test of the WMS map service. This is the feeder associated to it. So this is KML files with transformed into transparent layers of tiles on top of each other. So that's the one service that we have here. So yeah, so that was for the quick view of HTTP handlers.
Well, we have to wrap this up now. So, like, again, this is completely impressive. I know Joe told me about this, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is gonna be great, and I believed him. But wow, I couldn't think of a better thing to present to people this month. This is a really great product, and I can tell you right now, I'm going to probably be using it pretty soon. And I've learned two more things. Well, actually, I learned one thing. I want to say something else. One, I think you dream code. I don't think there's a moment you're not writing code, because this is very evident to that. And if there's something that our community can use a lot more of, Joe and Jess, it's Swagger. So we definitely need more Swagger. So just to kind of repeat, our next upcoming Hangouts next Wednesday, August 26th, we got a special episode covering the DNN source code. September 9th, we got Philip Becker talking about building social, a DNN platform. And October 7th, we got Clint Patterson talking about getting his funk on with the form and list module. That's a very creative one. I think if you've never used the form and list module creatively, you're going to be surprised what you can do with it. And then in November, we're going to be talking about the DNN 8 event. Now, with that, I think it's probably time to say thank you so much for this great presentation, Jess. We appreciate having you on, and more than likely, we'll probably bring you back on to show some of this other cool stuff too.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, always good to see you again, Jess, and definitely a lot of content to digest. And I definitely recommend that people in the community go check out the module. It's free, it's open source, so if you want to see how they did stuff, like all open source, take a look. And if you think there's something that can be done better, submit a patch. I'm sure Jess and his team would love to have other people submitting ideas and submitting code as the DNN platform team does as well. So.
Well, thanks. Yeah, everybody is welcome to give a hand.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. It was great to see you guys. And can't wait till next one.
Good. Always good to see you again, Will, and definitely looking forward to next month. And Jess, we will see you at the next conference. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll catch you next month.
Bye-bye.